Kim and Paris ruined my childhood. I used to be their friend, and they would take me to Epstein Island and present me in front of adults.
He got him. And he got him in multiple different areas. Look at this. So this has to do with somebody that was filing complaint against Maxwell that had all types of Kardashian ties.
Basically, all I want to do is crawl in a hole and stay there for the rest of my life. You tell me what I should do. Tell me.
We all thought the Epstein story had already reached its darkest point. But then another wave of claims surfaced, and suddenly, people online were asking a question that sounded almost too bizarre to believe. Were the Kardashians somehow connected to Britney Spears' conservatorship? And if that question sounds extreme, the allegations that followed were even more explosive. According to claims that have circulated online, the family may have been tied to a system that allegedly profited from Britney for years, with some people throwing around numbers as high as $200 million, and others claiming it could have been far more. Even after Britney finally got out from under the conservatorship, critics argue the money machine may never have fully stopped. And right in the middle of this entire controversy is a name that keeps coming up over and over again: Lou Taylor. For a lot of people who follow the hashtag Free Britney movement closely, that name is not new. In fact, many believe Lou Taylor has been one of the most important behind-the-scenes figures in Britney's story for years. So when her name started getting linked not only to Britney's finances, but also to major Kardashian business entities, it immediately set off alarm bells. Because this story isn't just about celebrity gossip anymore. It's about power, it's about money, and it's about what people believe may have been happening while the public was watching something else. As most people already know, Britney Spears was placed under a conservatorship in 2008, and that arrangement lasted until 2021. For more than a decade, one of the biggest pop stars in the world reportedly had little to no control over huge parts of her own life, including her money, her career decisions, and even deeply personal choices. And once the hashtag Free Britney movement gained real momentum, people didn't just ask how the conservatorship ended. They started asking how it began. That's when the deeper digging started. And according to the reports and public claims that kept surfacing, investigators, fans, and critics kept landing on the same circle of names: Jamie Spears, Lou Taylor, and eventually, the Kardashians. Some reports claimed Britney's father, Jamie Spears, had received more than $40,000 from Lou Taylor. And according to those allegations, that financial connection raised serious questions about whether the conservatorship was purely about Britney's well-being, or whether there were financial motives behind it from the start. Even more unsettling, Britney's own mother reportedly suggested in her memoir that conversations about the conservatorship may have been happening long before the public ever knew anything about it, allegedly while Britney was already in a vulnerable state. And if that's true, then the obvious question becomes, how much of this was planned before Britney ever had a chance to fight back?
My name's Britney Spears. I called you earlier, but I'm calling again because I just wanted to make sure during the process of ending the conservatorship that my father threatened me several times that he would still take my children away. I just want to be guaranteed that everything will be fine with the process.
Amid a media frenzy, the 26-year-old pop star was brought by ambulance to a Los Angeles hospital.
You start to think, well, okay, who gained from her dying?
There were more unanswered questions after the autopsy came out than there were answered questions.
I brought 4 sheets of paper in my hands and wrote in length what I had been through the last 4 months before I came there. The people who did that to me should not be able to walk away so easily.
Now at this point, a lot of people ask the same thing. What do the Kardashians have to do with any of this? And that's where the story starts to get even more controversial. According to multiple reports, Lou Taylor allegedly had significant business ties to Kardashian-Jenner companies. Court filings from 2020 and 2021 reportedly listed her as the agent for service of process for several businesses connected to the family. In simple terms, if legal documents were ever served to those companies, Lou Taylor was one of the people connected to that process. And we're not talking about small side projects. We're talking about major brands linked to some of the most recognizable celebrity businesses in the world: Kim's Fragrance, Kylie's King Kylie LLC, the Kris Jenner Family Foundation, Kendall's 818 Tequila, and even Travis Scott's Cactus Jack. That alone was enough to get people talking. But then the allegations became even more intense. Some Britney supporters who have followed the conservatorship case very closely began claiming that money connected to Britney may have been funneled through business channels tied to Lou Taylor, and then into Kardashian-related ventures. One allegation suggested those funds may have helped boost Kylie Cosmetics. Another claim alleged that Britney's money may have been used by Kim to buy a house in cash. To be clear, these are allegations that have circulated publicly, but the reason they exploded online is because people were already suspicious of the business relationships involved. And once those suspicions took hold, the internet did what it always does. It started digging deeper. In fact, shortly after the first claim spread, one online investigator pushed the theory even further and argued that the numbers people were discussing might not even be close. According to that estimate, the alleged total may have been far higher than $200 million, possibly even closer to $600 million. That's the kind of number that instantly changes the scale of the story, because now you're no longer talking about celebrity connections. You're talking about a possible financial network, a machine, a structure, a system that critics believe may have been hiding in plain sight. Some people even pointed to Kim's reported relationship with Lou Taylor as proof that the connection ran deeper than most casual observers realized. And once those dots started being connected publicly, the backlash only got louder.
Now, word in Hollywood is that the Kardashians may have stolen $600 million from Britney Spears.
But this is where the story stops feeling like ordinary Hollywood controversy and starts feeling much darker. Journalist Liz Crokin, who has previously spoken publicly about other high-profile celebrity controversies, also weighed in. And what she said poured gasoline on an already raging fire. According to Crokin, both the Kardashians and Diddy were clients of Lou Taylor's company, TriStar. She also alleged that Lou Taylor played a central role in Britney Spears' conservatorship and suggested that Kylie Jenner's beauty business may have been used in connection with Britney's money. Again, those are allegations, but they spread fast because they fit into a larger theory many people were already building. And Britney, according to those following this narrative, may not have been the only target. There were also rumors that Lou Taylor may at one point have tried to position herself around Lindsay Lohan. That claim has never been fully substantiated, but people online speculated that Lindsay's father was not nearly as easy to control as Jamie Spears, and that may be one reason the situation allegedly never escalated in the same way. Then came one of the most confusing and frustrating parts of the entire saga. During the height of the #FreeBritney movement, the Kardashians publicly expressed support for Britney. On the surface, that looked like solidarity. But to critics, it looked like strategy. Because if Lou Taylor really had such deep ties to the family, how could that public support be taken at face value? And that skepticism only intensified when reports surfaced that Lou Taylor had recently been a guest at Kris Jenner's birthday celebration. That moment changed the conversation for a lot of people. Because now the question wasn't just whether the Kardashians knew Lou Taylor. The question became, how close are they really? How do you publicly support Britney while privately appearing connected to one of the figures many critics believe was central to her suffering? That contradiction is exactly why so many people said the support felt performative, like damage control, like a public relations shield instead of genuine concern. And for many online commentators, that was the biggest red flag of all. Some even went further, saying they still worry about Britney's safety and well-being because, in their view, too many powerful people remained too close to the story. And if you thought that was the end of the controversy, it wasn't. Because another piece of the Kardashian empire also came under scrutiny: Kris Jenner's church. Some time ago, Kris faced heavy backlash after reports resurfaced about California Community Church, which she founded. According to those reports, members, including people allegedly close to the family, were expected to contribute significant money, including monthly payments and a percentage of their income. For years, critics dismissed it as little more than a convenient tax structure wrapped in religious language. But as more people started re-examining the family's business web, some began asking whether that church served a much bigger purpose behind the scenes. And then even more explosive claims followed. Some people allege that Diddy may also have had links to that world, and that the church may have been used as a channel for money that appeared charitable on paper while serving very different purposes privately. Those allegations remained deeply controversial, but by that point, the public mood had already shifted. People weren't laughing these theories off anymore. They were paying attention.
Lou Taylor apparently is paying off, allegedly, some of Diddy's victims from this slush fund through...
But then the story took another turn, and this may be the part that made people the most uncomfortable. In the latest wave of Epstein-related claims discussed online, the Kardashians were reportedly named again. And according to the allegations, it wasn't over anything minor. The names allegedly surfaced after a complainant in matters connected to the Ghislaine Maxwell case filed claims with federal authorities. In that complaint, the Kardashians were accused of maintaining ties to both Maxwell and Epstein and of being involved in misconduct tied to identity, money, and exploitation. Those are extremely serious allegations, and they remain allegations. But the reason this part of the story hit so hard is because of how specific some of the claims reportedly were. According to the complaint, the Kardashian sisters allegedly worked with Maxwell in ways that exploited the complainant's identity for financial and commercial benefit. The filing reportedly also included accusations involving identity misuse, children, possible surrogacy arrangements, fraud, and stolen funds. The complainant even claimed, in words attributed to the filing, that Khloe and Kendall took a particular interest in my marriage and change of name, while also alleging that Kim Kardashian's name had been mentioned in connection with identity theft claims and a cosmetics company valued in the hundreds of millions. Now, whether those claims are ever proven, disproven, or fully explained is another matter entirely. But here's the reason this story refuses to die. Every time people think they've reached the edge of it, another layer appears, another name, another accusation, another file, another question nobody seems eager to answer.
Look, they tried to medicate me. I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me. And they when I asked them how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly, it took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand that if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. I mean, look at
they would have Michael Jackson
or worse, yeah. So look at what they did. Look at what they did to Britney. When she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way. But 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can see it now. You can see.
Honestly, like to sue my family, to be totally honest with you. I also would like to be able to share my story with the world and what they did to me, instead of it being a hush-hush secret to benefit all of them. I want to be able to be heard on what they did to me. By making me keep this in for so long is not good for my heart. I've been so angry and I cry every day. It concerns me. I'm told I'm not allowed to expose the people who did this to me. For my sanity, I need you to the judge to approve me, do an interview where I can be heard on what they did to me. And actually, I have the right to use my voice and take up for myself. My attorney says I can't, it's not good. I can't let the public know anything they did to me, and by not saying anything is saying it's okay. I don't know what I said here. It's not okay. I don't want to interview. I'd much rather just have an open call to you for the press to hear, which I didn't know today we're doing.
And then we get to the part that may be even bigger than all the celebrity names combined. Because according to critics, the real scandal now is not just what's in the files. It's what the public still hasn't been allowed to see. The Department of Justice has insisted that the necessary disclosures have already been made. But when people started examining the numbers more closely, they claimed something wasn't adding up. By their math, millions of pages were still missing from public view, and that immediately shifted attention away from celebrity gossip and straight onto the people controlling the records. That's why the story still matters in 2026. Not because the internet likes scandals, not because celebrity names trend easily, but because, according to critics, records connected to Epstein's network are still being withheld, and each new release appears to trigger even more fallout. More names reportedly surface, more questions get asked, more people step away from positions of power, and somehow, the full picture still remains out of reach. Now the spotlight has landed hard on Pam Bondi. Based on what the Department of Justice has released so far, and how it has handled that release, critics increasingly believe someone is being protected. That is the suspicion driving the latest political firestorm. And the biggest development came when the House Oversight Committee formally subpoenaed Attorney General Pam Bondi over the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Her deposition is scheduled for April 14th, 2026, and for many people watching this case, that date now feels like a major turning point. Before that deposition, Bondi agreed to meet privately with the committee behind closed doors on March 19th. But instead of calming public concern, the meeting seemed to do the opposite. Because according to reports, Democrats walked out furious. Why? Because they believed she made no meaningful commitments, no clear promise of full cooperation, no confidence that the missing material would actually be addressed. And that brings us to the two questions at the heart of all of this. First, why are roughly 2.5 million records still not public? Second, why are millions more pages so heavily redacted that critics say they are nearly useless? And if you think this is just partisan theater, that's where things get even more interesting. Because it wasn't only Democrats raising alarms. 5 Republicans reportedly crossed party lines to support the subpoena as well, which is exactly the kind of bipartisan break that makes people think something much bigger is going on behind the scenes. When both sides of the political aisle suddenly agree that there's a serious problem, people notice. And once again, the numbers became impossible to ignore. The DOJ's message, according to critics, was simple. We follow the law. We released millions of pages. We complied. But critics say the math still doesn't work. And when the math doesn't work, trust starts collapsing.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. The 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. President Trump has said for years what I think everybody will find to be exactly true, which is detailing his relationship and lack thereof with Mr. Epstein and what he thought about Mr. Epstein and notwithstanding what the department has been saying for a very long time, we're still where we are today.
Because this is the point where the official story begins to unravel in the eyes of the public. Congressman Ro Khanna reportedly stated that the DOJ itself identified more than 6 million potentially responsive pages tied to the matter. More than 6 million. So if only around half of that has been released, then the question becomes brutally simple. Where is the rest? Where are the other millions of pages? Why were they held back? Who decided what the public could see and what it couldn't? And perhaps most importantly, what exactly is buried in the material that remains hidden? What makes this even more significant is that public outrage appears to have had an effect more than once. According to critics, both times pressure surged over withheld records, another batch of files quietly appeared. And if that's true, it tells you something important. It tells you this story only moves when people refuse to let it go. That's why supporters keep repeating the same message. Keep watching, keep asking, keep pushing. Because every time the pressure fades, the silence returns. Lawmakers are now reportedly pushing for further action that could force more complete disclosure. And all of that makes Pam Bondi's April 14th deposition feel even more important, because many believe that may be the moment when direct answers can no longer be avoided. But the political fallout is only one part of this. Because according to the narrative surrounding these file releases, there has also been a wave of resignations, testimony demands, and public scrutiny involving people whose names allegedly appeared in connection with the records. Former Harvard President Lawrence Summers reportedly stepped away from his Harvard roles after alleged ties to Epstein resurfaced in discussion of the files. Goldman Sachs legal chief Catherine Rumler also reportedly resigned after documents allegedly linked her name to Epstein in deeply embarrassing ways. Peter Attia was likewise drawn into the controversy after his name reportedly surfaced multiple times in a January release, with claims that his departure followed soon after. Howard Lutnick, now serving as U.S. Commerce Secretary, reportedly agreed to testify regarding allegations tied to trips to Epstein's island. And then there's one of the most explosive claims of all, that Bill Clinton allegedly became the first former U.S. president required to testify before Congress specifically regarding connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Whether every claim in this broader public narrative holds up or not, one thing is undeniable. The pressure is growing, the names are getting bigger, and the public appetite for answers is not going away. As some journalists who have followed the case for years have pointed out, Epstein's network was always said to involve wealthy, powerful, deeply connected people, exactly the kind of people who are often hardest to investigate and hardest to hold accountable. Which is why so many people feel that what's happening now may only be the beginning. And just when all of that already felt overwhelming, this week brought several other celebrity headlines that added even more chaos to the news cycle. One of the biggest involved Joseph Duggar, who was reportedly arrested on March 31st. According to reports, the former reality TV personality was taken into custody and faced charges, with a Florida court setting bail at $600,000.
Another member of the Duggar family is facing legal troubles. Over 3 years after Josh Duggar was sentenced to 12 years in prison for receiving and possessing child material, his brother Joseph Duggar has been accused of a child.
She urged him not to trust anyone except his attorney. His cousin, Amy Duggar King, said she wasn't surprised. Her words, not mine. Then came another deeply disturbing report, a serious car crash involving Eugene Merman. If you watch Bob's Burgers, you know him as the voice of Gene Belcher. On March 31st, he was reportedly pulled from a burning vehicle in New Hampshire after his car caught fire and crashed into the Bedford Toll Plaza. He was trapped inside. As of April 2nd, he remained hospitalized, and officials had not yet fully clarified his condition. And if all of this feels like too much for 1 week, that's exactly the point. Every few days, another headline lands. Another file release triggers more speculation. Another powerful name gets dragged back into the conversation. Another official statement raises more questions than it answers. And now, here we are in April 2026. Millions of pages are still reportedly being withheld. Powerful people still have not fully answered for what critics believe the records may reveal. And the public is still being told to trust a process that many no longer trust at all. So yes, April 14th is the day to watch, because that is when Pam Bondi is expected to face direct questioning, and many believe that deposition could reshape everything we think we know about what has been hidden, what has been released, and who may still be protected. And if that happens, the fallout could be enormous. Now I want to hear from you. Who do you think is the next major name this story could touch? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. And if your prediction ends up being right next week, I'll give you a shout out.